So why is this important? Do you know who that is? Can you guess? I'm shameless. They're my grandchildren. They live in Brooklyn. And my daughter had her iPhone one day and she noticed that little Thompson had hopped up on the sofa and was reading his favorite book to his little sister. It's all about trucks. But, look at her. She's into it. And they are so curious and eager to learn. They're into everything. And every time the school bus goes by, behind this sofa is a window. And every weekday, a school bus goes by, and they hop up. They're so excited because somehow they know, they see the kids in the bus, and they know that that's going to be them one day. And you know what? We just can't let them down. There are thousands and thousands of kids just like them, so eager and curious. And we have to make sure we embrace all of them along with their families and do whatever it takes to make sure that every single one of them succeeds and does well and thrives in school. And if we do that, it will make an enormous difference for our communities, our states, our country. So what do we know about engaging families? Talk to each other for just a minute at your tables. What have we learned? What's the knowledge in the room and at your table? So is there a link between family-school partnerships and student achievement? What do you think?
Yes.
Of course there is. As it happens, I've been documenting this since 1981. That's back when I was 10 years old, as Judy said. 10 and then some. In 1981, we had a new conservative Congress that swept in. Who was president? 1981? Ronald Reagan. And Congress repealed all the parent involvement requirements in Title I in 1981 and replaced ESEA with the Education Consolidation and Improvement Act. And so by consolidating and improving, they thought they'd just get rid of all the parent involvement requirements because they undermined the authority of local officials. Actually, I can put this mic down and talk in my mic, can't I? Can you still hear me pretty well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I went and looked up all the research I could find on parent involvement and student achievement because I just couldn't believe that it wasn't important. And I found a whole bunch of studies, and they were all positive. So I published a little research review called The Evidence Grows. I didn't know at the time that it was going to turn out to be my life's work, but right now I've got this little button in the middle of my back, and when I push it, I start talking about this research. And this new wave of evidence is just the latest in a series of these reviews that I've done. But what happened when I went out back in the early 80s and started talking about this research to groups like yours, people would say to me, well, okay, but what kind of difference does it really make? And this is the answer. No matter how you look at it, whether you're comparing schools that are open and work well with families to schools that I would call fortress schools that are closed tight, the more open schools are, the higher achieving they seem to be. And the results, the benefits for kids extend all across the grade levels. Not only do they earn higher grades and test scores, but they're more comfortable in school. They like coming to school more. If their families are engaged and know what's going on in school, kids feel like they belong. And James Comer, who's a wonderful person from Connecticut, somebody I've admired all my life, has a wonderful thing that he says that's simple to understand but goes really deep. He says, children learn from people they bond to. Isn't that true for all of us? If we like somebody and trust them, we're going to learn from them. And aren't they so much more likely to bond to somebody who knows and respects their families? Somebody they see talking to their families in a positive way, which several of your tables pointed out. And we didn't find any negative side effects from this. We didn't find that if schools reach out and really work with families around improving reading scores, that kids' test scores went down. There were no studies like that. And overall, this thing keeps jumping. When families are engaged at home and at school, not only do their kids do better in school, but there's a collective impact. And schools as a whole get better the more that they work with their families. Now, a lot of questions I would get, especially in the early years, would be, okay, I buy it. I know it's important. I know we have to work with our families. But if it's so important, why aren't parents just doing it? And the answer is, as Joyce Epstein points out, and Connecticut is a member of her national network of partnership schools. She's one of the preeminent researchers in the field. She has found over and over again that the strongest predictor of whether families are involved isn't so much their education level or income, but it's what the schools do to invite and support and encourage involvement. Schools that have big no trespassing signs, you know, intruders will be shot on sight, and I know we have to be careful about security, but who is more concerned about security than parents? Of course they want the schools to be secure, but they also want them to be open and welcoming. They want to be able to go through the door and talk to a teacher, talk to a counselor, talk to the principal if they need to be able to go to a parent center and get information. They want to come to activities that give them a window on what their kids are learning and doing in class. But sometimes what happens is a parent walks in the door and somebody says, "Excuse me, who are you? Why are you here? Do you have an ID?" So what does that do to a parent's sense of their right to come into a school and be connected to what their kids are doing? So we have to be always welcoming and inclusive of our families, and give them lots of personal invitations in their own language. We have to reach out to them in multiple ways, all of the things that you were saying. So let's take a look at some of these new studies that are coming through that are really powerful new research. One of them is from Chicago. Chicago has the Consortium on Chicago School Research, which is a very, very deep database that's been collected ever since the school reform law was passed in Illinois in like 1988. And it's a gold mine for researchers, this database. So Anthony Bright and his colleagues did a study that researchers are calling the most significant study on school reform of the last decade, called Organizing Schools for Improvement. And they found 5 essential supports for school improvement. You know, we're Americans, we like our quick fixes. We're always looking for the one thing, what is it? And out there, you know, school reform people are pounding the drum about teacher quality. It's teacher quality, or it's strong instructional leadership. You've all heard that, right? Well, yeah, okay, it is, but not just. And without all 5 of these things, schools are substantially less likely to make gains. And one of them is, you knew this was coming, right? Strong ties with families and the community is what they called it in this study. But of course that means reaching out to families and community and really connecting with them. It made it much more likely that students would make significant gains. So here are the 5. Again, strong leadership, instructional guidance means good professional development, good teaching materials. It means aligning the curriculum with the standards and with the assessments so that students are learning what they're going to be assessed on. It means teacher capacity, of course that's important. And then school climate. School climate was really big back in the 70s. Anybody remember that? Oh, school climate was the thing then. And then it got dismissed as sort of soft and fuzzy, and we started talking about standards and assessment. Well, it turns out school climate really is very important. A positive, student-centered school climate. I mean, every one of you would say that, right? I mean, this isn't a newsflash exactly, except that the research really does show that it's just as important as everything else. And then we have our family, school, community ties. Now, the two things on the bottom aren't there because they're less important. They're there because they're foundational. Think about it. You have brilliant new teachers coming into schools. And if it's a toxic climate, there's no family and community involvement. The leadership in the school is absent. There's no instructional guidance. How long is that teacher going to stay in that classroom? Half of all new teachers leave the profession within 5 years. And it's because they're not getting the supports from the other areas. So yes, you can talk about teacher quality, but you also have to think about teacher support and retention. And it comes from these other elements. So what did they measure when they looked at strong ties with families in the community? They looked at several different things, because again, it's never just one thing, is it? Everything can be broken down into lots of other things. But they looked at teachers' ties to the community. A lot of our teachers don't live in the communities where they teach. They commute in from other areas. And they may not know the community where their children live. They may not spend time there or understand the local issues or understand what the local assets are if it's a low-income community. They may see blighted housing. They may see bottles and brown paper bags. They may see trash-strewn lots, and they think this place is, a bad neighborhood. But once they spend time in the community, they might understand the picture is much more diverse and nuanced than that, and that every community has its strengths, its high points, and its assets. Another thing they looked at was the extent to which teachers reached out to parents. They can't just stand in the building and wonder why nobody comes in. They have to do the outreach. And they invite parents to observe in class. I really liked that indicator because that signals trust, doesn't it? To invite parents to come in and watch you teach a lesson and really see in real terms, real time, what kids are doing and learning in class means a lot to families. They also try to understand parents' concerns and embrace them as partners. I just heard a saying the other day I liked a lot, which is, if you're not at the table when a decision is being made, you're probably on the menu. So parents are at the table in schools that have close ties. And finally, they looked at parent response. This is what they call an internal validity measure. So yes, if the school says we're doing all these things, we understand our community, parents are coming in, but if the parents say, we are, no, we're not involved, we don't feel welcome, then the researchers know that the school isn't really doing what it says it's doing, or it's not doing it effectively. That's one of the reasons why the study is so powerful, because the measures are very well designed. So take a look at this. The orange bars show the likelihood that a school will improve in reading if it's weak. in any of the 5 areas. And the purple bar shows the likelihood that it'll improve if it's strong in that area. So parent involvement is second from the left. A school is 4 times more likely to improve. 4 times if it has these strong ties with families. And what's interesting to me is how powerful all of them are. They're all about equally important. That work orientation in the middle, in case you're wondering what the heck that is, that's one of the markers for teacher quality. That means teachers work hard, they do their job, they show up, they're not absent, and they're conscientious. And if a school is weak in even one area, the likelihood that it'll improve goes way down. So this study really gives us a roadmap for what we need to be doing in our schools. And it also shows that engaging our families is not an option, it's essential. Now let's take a look at another study from across the pond in England. This data are also incredibly powerful data. This is a program called Achievement for All. It was developed by the British Department for Education, they call it. And the focus is raising achievement for the bottom 20% of the kids. The nation had a goal, and it's similar to our goal as a nation, of having 80% of their students succeed. But what's the flip side of that? 20% not succeeding. This isn't really acceptable. At which 20% is that going to be? Is it going to be your kids? Nobody wants their kids in that bottom 20%. So they really focus this program on children with special needs. So that would be children with learning disabilities and other handicaps, but it would also be children who are just at the bottom of the academic heap, would be like our Title I kids. And there are 4 pieces to the program, of course. There's never just one thing. And it's similar to the Chicago study. They focus in on strengthening leadership, strengthening instruction, bringing in the community to focus in on more resources for families and for learning. And the linchpin of the program is structured conversations between teachers and parents. And let's take a look at the gains. In the UK, they look at points of gain a year, and the goal is 3 points of gain. We just got our NAEP results over 2 years, didn't we? And the nation made about 3 points of gain, and we're really clapping for ourselves. But in the UK, the national average in both language arts and math was just a little over 3 points. So good, they're on track. But then the middle bar there shows the points gained for students in the program, the Achievement for All program. And it's over 4 points in language arts and almost 4 points in math. And then at the bottom it shows the national average gain for special needs students not in the program. So the kids in this program, where they have the structured conversations between parents and teachers and supports for school leaders and teachers to do a better job of instruction, made 50% greater gain than special needs students who didn't have the benefit of the program. This is a really powerful gain. And this is in 1 year. And the third study I'm going to talk to you about, because it's this research is all so interconnected. It's all got, from a researcher's point of view, big red arrows that are pointing all in the same direction. Students' reading and math scores in this study of Title I schools, very well done study on high poverty Title I schools, looking at a variety of school improvement strategies And they looked at 8 different strategies, including teacher outreach to parents. And they found 2 of the 8 were significantly related to students' gains. One was professional development that was highly rated by teachers. So again, that's that instructional guidance thing that we saw in the Chicago study. And that makes sense, right? Teachers are getting the support they need, and they're rating it highly. And the second was teacher outreach to parents. That was 3 things. It was meeting with the families face to face and building that relationship. Not just the parents who happen to come in for back to school night, but intentional practice to connect to every family in their class and meet with them face to face so that you know your students' families. And then sending home materials that parents can use with their kids. Doing that builds parents' confidence, it gives them a window onto the classroom, helps them understand what their kids are actually working on and doing. And it reinforces at home what kids are learning in class. And then the third thing was staying in regular touch about progress. This was another thing your tables came up with just now. Okay, the typical American household is sitting around the dinner table and the phone rings. It's the teacher. What's the reaction likely to be?
What'd you do?
What do you do now? The kid's under the table. What if instead it's like, whoa, he did great today. We had a real breakthrough in math. Or I've noticed that your daughter is really relating to her classmates. She's getting over her shyness, and she actually spoke up in class today 3 times, and so on. So that there's regular positive communication going on. And then if there's a problem that surfaces, you've got a lot of credit in the bank. There's trust, there's a relationship. You can collaborate on solving a problem when it comes up. And when teachers do those 3 things, students' reading and math scores improve at a 40 to 50% faster rate. Remember the goal of No Child Left Behind? By the year 2014, what were we supposed to have done? 100% of the kids proficient. What is it now? It's about 35%. Okay, doesn't this faster rated gain sound pretty good at this point? I mean, 2014, that's like, excuse me, that's next January. Okay. We need to move along. And what this research is showing us is that close collaboration and communication between parents and teachers is absolutely critical to improving student achievement. This is what we have to be doing. Now, at secondary school, it looks a little different. It's not just teachers sending home learning stuff for kids. You've got to do a whole bunch of things that are all related to preparing a child for the future, for planning for what they're going to do when they graduate from high school, because the goal of high school graduation isn't enough anymore, is it? A high school diploma is not going to get you very far in our new global economy. And so parents need to be communicating constantly about how their kids are doing in class, what they're taking, whether it matches their goals, are they on track, not only to graduate, but to graduate with an acceptance letter in hand for a meaningful post-secondary program, whether it's a 4-year college, a community college, a technical program, or an apprenticeship, whatever it is. There needs to be more education after high school, and parents and teachers and students, because they're very much part of the equation, need all to be at the table around that. So what creates those strong ties with families? what we're suggesting here in Connecticut, and this is very much connected to the program that the state education agency is doing to totally revitalize school parent compacts, is having learning conversations about learning between teachers and parents that are aligned to the school improvement plan. If I came up to you and asked you, tell me what 2 goals in your school improvement plan are right now. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if I did, how many people think that they could actually answer that question? Good. A few. Beyond just, we're going to improve reading and math. I mean, every school improvement plan says that. But what skills are you working on? A lot of people can't answer that question. I ask it all the time when I go out. And the thing is, your school improvement plan is your roadmap for getting from where you are now to making adequate yearly progress, to turning things around for your kids. And how in the world are we going to get there if we don't know what it is? Everybody should know what it is. The families, the students, the teachers, the other staff, the school leadership. But it needs to be made family friendly, because if you look at the typical school improvement plan, the language is pretty murky. You know, in 3 years we're going to improve math achievement by 15% or 10%. Well, okay, wait a minute. Does that mean the school scores are going to go up by 10%, or does it mean 10% more students are going to do better or move into the proficient range, or what? So we need to take those goals, align them with the Common Core standards, because that's the new game in town, right? So we have to make that family friendly. We have to translate that into terms everybody can understand that are really clear. And then, for each grade level, identify the skills that need to be strengthened and discuss strategies that teachers and families can use. So imagine a conversation between parents and teachers where the teacher says, this is 3rd grade. What we really need to do is build reading comprehension in our classroom. So parents are going to say, how do you do that? What do you do? And the teachers say, well, we read a little bit and then we ask questions to ask the students, why do you think that happened? Or what do you think the author is trying to say? And the parents are like, we can do that. But maybe they didn't know about those strategies. How would they if we didn't tell them? Parents might say then, could I watch you do that? Could I watch you teach a reading comprehension lesson? Or can I watch how you build vocabulary? What are those lists you've got up on the wall? Can we have a list like that at home? And now you're cooking. Now you're having a meaningful conversation about teaching and learning between parents and teachers, where they're not, the teacher isn't just saying, I want you to read to your kids 20 minutes a night. Because that's what they tend to get home in the flyers. Well, what do you want us to read? How do you want us to read? Is it okay if we read in our home language? What kind of stuff should we be reading? Can you send books home? What are you doing in class? We need to be able to have these deeper conversations rather than just sending home a compact that lists 5 things that the school wants parents to do, but without any real explanation. And if we do that, the research is telling us loud and clear that it will really pay off in student achievement. So parents and teachers move from being in their own separate spheres to being partners in improving learning. And if you've got to drill it down to the grade level, because what needs to be worked on in 2nd grade is not the same thing as 4th grade, or 5th grade, or 8th grade, or 9th grade. And if we all sit down and say, what do these Common Core standards mean? What does one look like? What kind of skills are they talking about? Then these conversations will surface ideas that can shape your family engagement program throughout the rest of the year. And then that does something very important. It strengthens families' capacity to support learning at home. Anybody want to guess what percent of students' waking hours they spend outside school in a year? 70%. Think of it, summer vacations, weekends, holidays, they're only in school 180 days a year, 6 hours a day. So what kids do out of school has a huge impact on how well they do in school. So the more we can equip parents with this kind of information, these are the high impact strategies that we've been talking about. So look at these Common Core. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Good. Take a look at these 2 Common Core standards. Pick one at your table, either the writing or the reading. I spared you math. How would you explain that to parents? What is an informative explanatory text? What is a sense of closure? How do you delineate an argument? Relevance and sufficiency of evidence. Our job is to make sure that they do understand, because if they do, then they're going to be asking their kids good questions and promoting this learning at home. And if you ask parents, what do you want? What would help you help your kid? They want to know, well, how do you teach reading? How do they do it now? They know it's different. They know math isn't taught the same way. And they'd love to be able not just to hear about it, but to see it. And then they really love getting math games and reading, activities that they can use at home with their kids. That strengthens the whole family learning environment. That's like what the great researcher Yuri Bronfenbrenner called having a fixative effect, that when we share this kind of knowledge with parents, it changes the home environment, and then that is what really supports learning over the long term for our students. So we have to be systemic in our thinking. When we think of all the different things we do to engage parents, how are they aligned with the goals in our school improvement plan? What are they going to do for student achievement? How are they going to help parents understand what kids are learning and doing in class, what the standards mean, what the assessments cover, what the data says? Data-driven. How many times do you hear that word in a day? Yep, too many. So lining up all the research, all the different resources that you have to have these kinds of conversations between parents and teachers. And have your action teams. If your schools have a family engagement action team, or if they don't, then you can form one so that you have a group of people at the school that are really working on this. So, okay, I know it was 5 things, and it was 3 things, and it was 4 things, and now I'm going to boil it down to 2 things. Building relationships. Getting to know one another and trust each other and understand each other and connect on a deep human level. This is the soil in which everything else takes root. So if a school says to me, well, we had a family fun night and only 10 parents came, I would say you need to do more work on building relationships. Maybe community walks, home visits. Our book, Beyond the Big Sale, has tons of strategies around all of these things that are actual, authentic strategies that people have used successfully in their own settings. And then linking to learning. Making sure that think about the reading nights. Lots of schools have a reading night, right? And maybe, they give out a couple of Dr. Seuss books and everybody sits around and reads the Dr. Seuss book. Well, that sounds good. It certainly promotes literacy, but how well really is it linked to what kids are learning and doing right now? What if instead we had a reading night where the different grade levels were each reading a book that was at their grade level and teachers were sharing strategies for how to do a read aloud? And then out of that read aloud, how to build a word wall. And then showing parents how the word wall looks in the classroom and how the teacher uses it and suggesting ways that parents could do it at home. And then asking parents, how can we help you do this kind of thing with your kids? So building relationships and linking to learning are two absolutely critical steps in developing those strong ties with your families.